Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness Podcast. I'm here with my co-host Walter Dial, tax partner at GRF CPAs and Advisors here in Bethesda, Maryland. Our mission here on the Exit Readiness Podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building sellable business value and for planning your eventual exit from the business. We want to help you build a business that's sellable and then help you exit successfully on your own terms in your own conditions. Walter, we've seen situations where a business owner has done all they can do in executing strategic plans for growth, operational plans to grow their business organically, only for them to experience continued stagnation in both sales and profit and growth. And they may have a financial exit goal or their number, if you will, that's going to require a much larger valuation and sale price than it seems like they're going to be able to accomplish through organic growth. In that case, as you know, we might suggest an analysis of whether or not it's going to make sense for them to consider growing through acquisition at this point, and really to focus there. And some of the common reasons that they might consider an acquisition would include a need to increase revenue, expansion, declining market share. They need to add talent. They need to stabilize the financials, or maybe they just need to expand their customer base. They still might be confident based on research in their market, but with their goal of a much larger valuation, they begin to think that growth through acquisition is going to make the most sense. So that's our topic today. Our topic is something we talked about on and off throughout our podcast history, if you will. Early on, we had an episode that was dedicated to this. And so here we are again. We're going to talk about growing your business through acquisition.
That's right, Pat. And we've got the perfect guest to handle this topic. We have Carl Allen of Dealmaker Wealth Society. Carl's an entrepreneur, investor, and a corporate deal maker. He's had a nearly 30-year career. During that time, he's analyzed thousands of businesses, big and small, in 17 different countries across nearly every business sector. And he's worked on more than 330 transactions worth close to $48 billion. Carl first earned his reputation during his 16 years on Wall Street, working for Bank of America, Hewlett-Packard, Forrester, and Gartner. And then he founded Dealmaker Wealth Society because he believes, and I'll quote him, starting a business from scratch is crazy. Hey, Carl, Pat can testify to that. And Carl is to use his skill set to help others realize their dream of self-employment. Carl, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Walter and Pat. It's great to be with you guys.
Yeah, it's good to have you, Carl.
So, Carl, Pat already mentioned, a few of the reasons that when we're meeting with a business owner, we might recommend that growth through acquisition is going to make sense for them.
Yep.
He talked about desire to increase revenue, maybe expand markets, add talent and capabilities, expand customer base. What would you say are some other good reasons for looking at acquisitions? And is there, what do you think the value of buying a business rather than starting one really comes down to?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And like for me, starting a business is just crazy. It's so difficult. If you're working for somebody else and you want to become a business owner, most people go down the path of starting a business. I think in the US in 2019, 6.6 million Americans started a brand new company, according to the SBA. And, if you look at the US Department of Labor statistics, 70% of those will fail inside of 10 years. If you talk to somebody like Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, he says it's higher, it's 96%. But, most businesses that start fail. And when you think about it, it's obvious why, because if you start a business from scratch, you have no customers, no employees, no product or service, no cash, no credit, no reputation. You don't have anything. So it's so hard to reinvent the wheel. And my advice to entrepreneurs is, rather than starting a company, just go and buy a business that's already exists that the owner wants to sell. And if you're smart about it, you can do that deal. You can buy that business often using other people's money. So you can get an SBA loan. You can go and sell equity in the deal to an angel investor or a family office. If it's a heavy asset-based business like an engineering company or a manufacturing company, there's other sources of financing that you can use where you're leveraging the balance sheet. So starting for me is crazy. Buying a company is quicker, it's safer, and it's far less expensive. In terms of buying to grow, it's what the big guys do. I spent the first half of my career doing really, really big deals. So $100 million and $1 billion deals for the likes of IBM and GE and Boeing and Microsoft. When you look at these big companies, they all grow by acquisition. Cisco is a great example of a company that continues to acquire businesses, and it's acquiring businesses, as you've suggested, for revenue growth. Obviously, when two businesses come together, there's a lot of synergies that they can generate. So if you're give you a simple example, if you're a software company, if you went out and bought an IT services company, you can sell the software to the IT services customers and vice versa. So you get the cross-selling and upselling of revenue. And then as you bring two businesses together, there are lots of duplicate costs that you can take out. So it's like a 1 + 1 = 3 on the revenue side and a 1 + 1 = 5 on the cash flow side. But there's actually a bigger reason, I believe, why a small business owner should acquire another business. Yeah, there's revenue, there's cash flow, there's talent. But on the talent piece, one of the biggest things I see a lot, and I'm looking at deals all the time inside of my private equity firm, and most of the businesses I look at, I can't buy them because the owner works in the business, not on the business. So if they were to leave, retire, or go and do whatever they're going to do, their business is going to evaporate because they are the business, and they don't really have a business. They more have a job in their own business, and it's kind of the worst job in the world. They don't have systems, processes, management teams to really, kind of hand the business on. And bearing in mind, most of the deals that I look at, they're in the $1 to $5 million revenue space. Generally, I'm buying businesses up to definitely sub $1 million of cash flow. And that's the biggest challenge with that market. So for me, if you own a business like that and you're deeply entrenched in your business and you're doing all the technical work of your business, you're not doing the strategic work, going out and acquiring another business gives you all the things you've talked about, but I think also can potentially give you a GM that can come in and can run that combined operation so that you can take a step back and you can do more of the strategic things that you should do, like the vision, the strategy, potentially other deals, grooming your business ready to be sold. And what that means is that a buyer is going to look at your business and think, well, this business works even if the owner's not there. And for me, that's the single biggest reason why most businesses don't get sold. If you look at the statistics, we built a model on this a few months ago. There's about 2.5 million businesses for sale today, just in the United States, and only about 1 in 11 will sell within the next 12 months. And the biggest reason for that, obviously some of them are not great businesses, but the ones that are, one of the reasons why they're not sold is because the owner is the business. And any buyer that looks at a business like that, they're going to be offering a very small closing payment with a long seller financing note stroke earnout, because they want to lock the seller in for a period of time to transition everything that's going on in the business to the people that have bought it. And obviously most sellers, they don't want that. They've got their valuation. We could spend a whole hour talking about valuation. I've got loads of thoughts on that. But then it's also the structure of the deal, isn't it? And one of the things that I see a lot when you're talking to sellers is, I ask them what they want right at the start. Once I figure out that it's a business I like, and for me, they've got the right motivation, the right mindset to want to sell the business, I ask them what's more important to them. Is it the size of the closing payment, or is it the overall size of the deal and the terms that they're going to get? And often they can't answer that. Some of them want to go to the golf club and say, yeah, I sold my business for $5 million. Yeah, you're going to get the money over 10 years. Or do they want that big check that they can get at closing to then go off and do something else with? So it depends on the seller, and it depends on the deal. But that's one of the things that I always look to figure out very, very early on in the deal.
Yeah. So do you find it? So the work that we do, we're helping to get these owners to the place that you just outlined there as a solid candidate for a business for you to buy. We want to get them in shape so that you'll come in and you'll look at it and say, okay, this runs itself. It's got all the value drivers I'm looking for, and so on and so forth. And in addition to that, the owner seems to be clear on what their goals are, because more often than not, we run into the same thing, and it's one of the things that we help with, is helping them to clarify their goals and objectives, financial goals, values-based goals, legacy goals, early on, so they're not doing it at the deal table with you.
Yeah.
Do you see that happen where, an owner of a business that you're looking to buy is actually deciding what they really want when they're sitting across the table from you, and can that just blow the deal up?
Unfortunately, yes, that does happen in some cases. I think there's two things really. My best piece of advice to a seller, before they even start the journey, is you've kind of got to answer two questions. So the first question that you've got to answer is, who do you want to sell to? Because if you own a business and you want to sell, there are really three types of people that you can sell to. So you can sell to an individual. So if you're a business owner that's really proud of your business, which most people are, you really care about your legacy, the safeguarding of your employees, the protection of your brand, your culture, your customers, your suppliers, then you might decide that you want more of a safe pair of hands to take your business to the next level, keep the name, keep the operation, keep it as it was meant to be. Then clearly an individual isn't going to be able to offer you as much as option number two, which will be a trade buyer. So if you own a company and you're not bothered about what happens to your business after the fact, you can entertain selling to a trade buyer, so a larger company that will absorb your business and do something with it. And in a lot of those cases, employees might be let go, customers get treated differently to the way they've been treated before, and kind of the culture and the legacy of the business that's been built tends to fade. Sometimes it's really fast, sometimes it's not. I sold a business last year. I had a big multi-seven-figure education company, and I sold it to a $1 billion corporate in the States. And let's just say they didn't do a very good job with my business, and I've since bought it back. Obviously at vastly reduced terms to what I sold it, because I thought they were going to do a really good job with the business, and sadly they didn't. They had other things going on, and I wanted to take it back to really fulfill what I wanted to do with it. So that's really important. And the third option for a seller is they can go down the private equity route. So they can sell to somebody like me that's obviously got capital, and often it can be like a quasi exit, where they might decide to sell 50 or 80% of the business now, partner with me for maybe a year until I can really get my hands around what's happening, and then cash them out, the bit later on. So it all depends on how they feel. and what their perception of that business is. Because one of the things that's amazed me, I've been doing this for a long time now, nearly 30 years, is when I sit down with the seller of a small business and they, I ask them, why are you selling your business? Tell me what you've done in your business to date. And they go all kind of melancholy. And it's lovely to see that in some cases, they've spent more time in their business than they have with their own family. And often it's like giving away one of their children, and they want to see it go to a good place. And they want it to go to somewhere that it's going to be nurtured and cherished and really loved and taken to another level that, for whatever reason, they don't have that kind of mindset or motivation, to do that. I'm buying a business in the UK right now that will close. The deal will close at the end of October. It's a multi-seven-figure business, massively profitable. The owners, it's just been a lifestyle business for them. They've made a lot of money out of it. They're totally happy. They can 10x. They should have 10x that business years ago. It's got so much potential, but their mindset was they just didn't want to do that. They want to take the risk. They didn't want to work even harder than they were doing already. They were happy. And for me to come in and paint them a vision of what I want to do with this business and the team that's already in there, for them, it's like they can cheer me from the sidelines. They can watch me do that, and they're going to benefit from a little bit of that upside, as well. It's just they just don't have it in them to do that. But they totally recognize that the business is capable of doing it. So that's a big question that all sellers should really figure out is who do we want to sell to? And then when it comes down to numbers, what's my number? A lot of sellers will call their wealth manager and say, look, I want to retire and, I want this sort of lifestyle. And the wealth manager will come back and say, right, you need $2 million. And then that becomes the number that they want for their business. But often there's a disconnect between financially, what is that business actually worth? And going back to my original point, depending on who you sell it to, obviously, depends on the valuation. If you're selling it to an individual who's got no leverage, they're pretty much guided by the bank or the financier that's going to partner with them. If you're selling to a trade buyer that's got deep pockets and can get a lot of strategic synergy out of what they're buying, they're going to price in some of the upside that they can self-generate from the deal. So those are the two questions that I just don't feel enough sellers really ask themselves that before they get to the table.
Yeah, send them to see us. That's what we're really.
There you go.
It's one of the things we're really good at. Walter, I think you had a question.
Yeah. So, Carl, one of the key drivers of value that Pat and I focus on, and you kind of hit upon it, is having a management team in place and maybe even a potential successor. And, we deal with the same size companies that you're talking about, mostly somewhere between $1 and $10 million in revenue. And like the number one problem we see is that these companies, while they're valuable to their owner because he's making a lot of money, they have very little transferable value because, like you pointed out, the business is just way too dependent upon the owner. So like I said, one of the key drivers of value is that they have a management team in place.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes during the process of identifying a successor, a small business owner, he finally comes to understand that their most talented and valued key employees might not really have the temperament to be an owner. So, they simply may not respond well to the pressure of owning the business. Yep. They're not interested in that risk. They like getting a paycheck and going home at night and not losing sleep over the business.
Yeah.
So, how much would you say that buying a small business should be based on psychological makeup versus just the numbers?
Oh, huge. It's absolutely huge. It's something I'm really passionate about as well. So when I was a Wall Street guy, I was doing massive deals. Those deals are really all about financial engineering. So it's really all about the numbers. There's a little bit of psychology at play, like when you're buying a public company, because obviously it's, what's the bid, what's the offer, what's the ask when you're dealing with publicly traded numbers. And, when I was back at HP, many, many years ago, I once paid 44 times EBITDA for a software company which was crazy. But the leverage that would give us internally in terms of the rest of HP's business was huge. So that's why we paid all that money. When you're doing a small deal, I think they're 90% about psychology and about 10% numbers, for the reasons that we just talked about. Most of the sellers that I see are more focused on the intangibles. So legacy, culture, safeguarding employees, safeguarding customers. I've done deals. I bought a media company in California in 2018. And all the seller cared about was the name of the business, the logo, and the employees that were in it. I sat her down and I said, look, what does the perfect deal look like for you? She said, well, I've got 3 requirements, Carl. Number 1, you can't change the name of the company. Okay. Number 2, and I think that's crazy. When people buy a company, they change the name. Why would you? It's got a reputation in the marketplace. If it's a good reputation, otherwise you wouldn't buy it. Why change the name? So you can't change the name. Okay. Number 2, you can't change the logo. I said, okay, that's fine, but why? She said, because my late husband designed the logo in 1985 and it won a national competition, and I'm really passionate about it. I don't want you to change the logo. Okay, the logo wasn't very good, but that's fine. We'll keep the logo. I said, number 3, you can't fire anybody. We're like a family. You're inheriting a family. And all these people, they work hard. We've looked after them all these years. If you buy the business, you've got to keep them all. If they want to leave at their own accord, that's fine. But you can't mess with the business. So I said to her, okay, I'll agree to those 3 things. What's your number? She told me. And I said, well, I want to pay you that money over 5 years. I'm not going to give you a closing payment. And she said, well, that's okay, but I'm going to need $10,000. This wasn't a broker deal, by the way. This was a direct approach. So there was no broker involved. She said, well, my only concern is, I need to pay my closing costs. I need to pay my CPA that's going to help you do all the due diligence. And I need to pay my attorney on the legals. She said, so if I could take a little bit of the cash out of the business to cover those costs, I'm happy to take the rest of the money over time. And that was the deal that we did, because she cared more about the intangibles versus the actual cold hard cash. And what's really interesting, and I'm a data guy, so I love surveying people, and I surveyed nearly 2,000 business owners. This is about 8 years ago I did this. I polled them and I asked them, when they'd sold their business, what was the number 1 thing that mattered the most? And 79% of them came back out of 2,000 people and did not say cash. They were talking about relief from retirement, legacy, safe pair of hands, don't want to see my employees let go. And tell you a really, really quick story just to really hammer home this point. So the first deal that I ever did, so I retired from the corporate world in 2008 because I just, my wife and I had a child, and I didn't want to be flying all over the world doing deals. So I quit and was at home for a little bit. And then I went and looked at a business. And my job was to sell this. It was a transportation company, about $5 million in revenues, about $1 million of cash flow. My job was to sell it. So I found a buyer, and it's the day before closing. And as you know, as a broker, you get paid when the deal closes, right? So I'm looking at like $250,000 in fees for brokering this deal, big deal. And it's the day before closing, and I'm in my office at home, and it's raining, and the wind and rain's flashing against the window. And the seller, Colin, he calls me. And he's in tears. And I said, what's the matter? He said, I'm pulling this deal. I'm not selling this business to these guys. He said, I need you to come down now and we'll tell you what we want you to do. So I got in my car and I drove down. It's back an hour. And I went into the business, and like all 60 employees were in the business. And I said, what's the matter? And they said, well, the seller's come in today, just finished due diligence. Everything's all ready to sign and close tomorrow. And they've given us a list of all the employees that they want us to fire. They don't want them. They want our customers and they want our assets. They don't want anything else. And he said, we can't do that. Some of these people have been with us for like 25 years. We can't sit on a beach sipping cocktails, knowing that these people that have worked really hard for us are going to be put into harm's way. They're not going to be able to make their house payments or put food on the table for their families. So they looked at me and they said, look, you've got to go find a buyer that's not going to do that. And, we're not bothered what the number is. We want somebody that is trustworthy, that can take the business on and protect everybody. And all the employees are all looking at me. And I don't know what possessed me, right? If I hadn't have done this, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I don't know what possessed me. But I looked them in the eye, Colin and Alan, the two brothers, and I said, I will buy the business. And they looked at each other and they looked at me and they said, what do you mean? You don't know anything about this company. I said, really? I've been working with you for like 3 months. I know everything about this company. I know how it works. I know all the employees. This is a great business. I said, I will buy the business. I said, I can't get you anywhere near the value that you were going to get. I said, but I can get you a decent closing payment because there's surplus cash in the business. There's assets I can finance. The bank will support me. I'll raise additional equity if I need to. Give you a big closing payment. And then let's go on a 3-year journey. You can applaud me from the sidelines and we'll do a profit share. And I pointed at the transport manager, the sales manager, and the financial controller. And I said, I'm going to give your 3 managers 10% each of the company and we'll grow it together. So they looked at each other and they looked at me and they're smiling and they said, we'll give you 30 days. If you can do that in 30 days, we'll sell you the business. And everyone's cheering and clapping. And there's this big trucker guy, he's like 6'5", comes over, he picks me up and he's swinging me around this warehouse. And that was it. I got in my car and I'm driving home and I'm thinking, what the heck have I just done? Anyway, following day, I calls the bank. I knew the business inside out. I got a term sheet within a week. I called my lawyer and within 30 days, I bought that business. And that convinced me of my earlier argument that often sellers just care more about other things than they do about money. Some people, they just want the money. And that's fine. They're entitled to it. They've worked hard. They've built a business. They're within their rights to monetize that in a capital event. But for me, the businesses I buy are where money is not as important. They want somebody that they can trust. And trust, credibility, rapport, getting the seller to know, like, and trust the buyer is really, really important.
Yeah, so that's a great example, really, of what I was talking about earlier. And then also just how, isn't it advisable that they learn more about what they indeed care about, as much as, if not more than, the actual payout earlier on in the process? So that can help inform what kind of buyer they're going to be looking for, whether it's going to be a strategic, whether it's going to be sale insider, sale to kids, sale to an ESOP. It can inform the buyer, but then also, or as to who the buyer is going to be, but then also it can help ensure that a deal, when actually is presented, the odds of it actually happening increase greatly if indeed they've clarified, done the tough soft skill work, if you will, that we like to talk about early on, well in advance, rather than at the deal table. Because so often it's at the deal table that they really come to understand and realize what it is they really care about, more than the money. So we've got, as we wrap up here, we got one last question for you, Carl. With goals of maximizing value in a future exit that's going to be successful, we're working with the sellers mostly. What recommended action steps would you have for a business owner in the first 100 days?
So this is for someone that's acquired the business and what they would do. Yeah. So it's a bit like, and you guys have got this right now in the presidential election. So for me as a business buyer, it's like the change in presidency. You have that transition period, don't you, from like November to January, And then in January, you take the oath of office and you're the president and you can get to work. So really as a buyer, you've got to be using that closing period. So let's say start to finish, from picking a business to owning it, it's going to take you, say, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. That period of time, whilst you're doing due diligence and you're negotiating and you're raising whatever capital you need, you've got to be building that plan so that the day that you close, while the ink's still drying on the sale and purchase agreement, you can go into that business and you can get to work. So there are primarily three things that I always do, and I build this into my pre-closing plan. So the first thing is it's quite boring. There's obviously administrative things that you need to do, like changing bank account details, passwords on IT, and then just culturally getting to know the people in the business. And it's really interesting. Like a lot of businesses that I see, that they're run, I don't want to use the word like dictatorships, but baby boomers that own businesses, the buck stops with them. They're the commander in chief, and they never really listen too much to what the rest of the employees think or feel. When I go in and I'm talking often to the employees for the very first time, because as you know, sellers don't like you mixing with their employees before you buy the business. So when you go in and you solicit, what do you love about this business? What do you not love about this business? What should we be doing lots more of? What are we doing that we shouldn't be doing anymore? And you poll all of those insights. The institutional memory that sits within a small business from the people in the trenches is gold. And for me, I look to mine that as quickly as possible. Some of the businesses that I've grown the most, the best ideas came from the people on the reception desk, because they were the people that would answer the phones from customers and knew everything. And the employees used to say, "This is great now. I've now got an owner that's much more interested in my brain and what value I can bring to the business." Crazy. So I do a lot of that stuff. And then the second thing that I do is I'll just go through some basic kind of financial engineering work, in that what you tend to find with a lot of small businesses, and you guys will see this, is they don't tend to manage their working capital very well, and the business is maybe not as lean and efficient as it could be, financially. So I get a lot of that figured out. And obviously, if you're financing an acquisition, you need to understand a lot of those fundamentals kind of anyway, because you need to know that you've got the cash flow to make the payments for the money that you're borrowing, etc. And then once you've done that, so you've got your business administratively and culturally aligned, you've got a working capital engine that's primed and optimized, then for me, it's all about growth. It's all about growth. How can we grow this business? What are the things that this business can do quickly? And another thing that I see a lot with a lot of small businesses is when I talk to a seller for the first time, first question I always ask them is, why are you selling? Always. Second question I always ask them is, how do you win new business? What's your marketing strategy? And 8 times out of 10, the seller will say to me, "This is what's good about our business, Carl. We don't have to do any marketing. It's all repeat customers, right. And it's all word of mouth referrals." Now I love that for 2 reasons. One, you got a really solid business where customers keep coming back and they're telling their friends and people about it. I love that. But secondly, I know that once I plug in my marketing, this business is going to grow over and above the solid base that it's got. So it's all about understanding, what they are, and really understanding the competition. How does this business beat the competitors in the marketplace? What is unique about them that makes them win, and why aren't they doing that every single day? A lot of small businesses might not have direct salespeople. Again, they're waiting for the phone to ring. Can you put reps in this business that can go out and can win a lot of new business? Are they leveraging social media like the world is these days? You look at an engineering company that was born in the 70s, it's probably not running Facebook ads. It's not got SEO on its website. The website's probably from 1993. They're not embracing, and they haven't had to, because they've built a really phenomenal business doing it their way. But there's ways to improve marketing and sales and really kind of drive the needle. So those are the things that I tend to get involved with And then really for me, I'm an owner and an operator, so I never sit inside of any of my businesses. I own lots and lots of different businesses now all over the world. I don't work in any of them. For me, it's all about the strategic work. So there's only really 5 things I ever want to do with a business: mergers, acquisitions, joint ventures, exits, and the strategic and visionary work to take the business to the next level. Those are the only 5 things I ever do. If I'm ever doing something outside of those 5, people have permission to hit me on the side of the head with a frying pan, because that's my skill set. That's where I'm in my zone of genius. I'm not the guy that's in the business doing the day-to-day operations. I have people, to do that.
Well, thanks, Carl. This has been really, really beneficial. I'm sure our listeners have really enjoyed it too. So is there anything you would like to promote today, and how can people reach you?
So we've put some training together for people that want to grow their existing business through acquisition, make it bigger, generate more cash flow, get more talent into the business. Maybe that GM that they want to kind of run it for them so they can take a back seat. We've put some free training together. So if people go to trainwithcarl.com/exit readiness. So that's trainwithcarl.com/exit readiness. We've put some free training in there that people can go through, and to see whether growing by acquisition is the right thing for them. But what that training will also do is it's obviously written in the mind of a buyer. So anyone that's looking to sell a business, it will give you lots of amazing pointers about what buyers look for in a deal and in a company, and how to pivot and position yourself so you're ticking a lot of those boxes when buyers come calling. And then we also have a lot of training videos as well on our YouTube channel. So Dealmaker Wealth Society, our YouTube channel. I'm always putting out YouTube videos on deal structuring and case studies and all those different things. So that's how people can get a hold of me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Carl. It's been great to meet you and learn more about what you're doing. And you've been a great guest, and we'll look forward to future interactions with you.
Thank you, guys. And I'll definitely look you guys up the next time I'm in Maryland.
Terrific.
Thanks, Carl. And
okay,
listeners,
guys.
if you want help in maximizing the value of your business or help in planning your eventual exit, you can reach Pat at 301-859-0860, and you can reach me at 301-951-9090. You can also access resources at exitreadiness.com, grfcpa.com, and nslp.com. As always, thanks for listening, and until next time on the Exit Readiness Podcast, this is Walter Dial and Pat Ennis signing off.